Nobody laughed louder than Drask when a human's name appeared on the screen. The Galactic Hunting Consortium had gathered its finest predators in the Great Hall of Station Meridian. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the viewing galleries, all waiting to see which species would claim the ultimate prize, a permanent seat on the High Council. The challenge was simple. Defeat the 5 Apex, the greatest hunters the galaxy had ever produced, and your species would rule alongside the elder races forever. Drask of the Vorm stood at the front. His scales were black as void, and his species could sense heartbeats through solid rock. Behind him waited Silith of the Khan, a four-armed insectoid who moved faster than eyes could follow. Gorn of the Molder towered over everyone, his massive frame built to hunt monsters on worlds with crushing gravity. Whisper the Thale had no fixed form. It could become anyone, anything, and had killed targets who never saw their death coming. Coldsteel the Rix was more machine than flesh, with weapons built into its body and sensors that missed nothing. These 5 had never been defeated. Not once. Not ever. When Earth submitted its champion, the hall erupted in confusion. Humans, the soft pink creatures from that death world on the edge of nowhere. The species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel 2 decades ago. This must be a joke, Silith hissed. IT was not a joke. Daniel Reeves walked into the hall with no fanfare. He was 43 years old, with gray at his temples and calluses on his hands. He wore no armor. He carried no visible weapons. He looked like someone's father arriving late to a school event. The consortium official read his credentials aloud. 20 years of search and rescue operations in Earth's wilderness regions. Specialization in tracking and survival. No military service. No combat declarations. Drask's laughter boomed across the chamber. This is your champion? A man who finds lost children in forests. Daniel said nothing. He simply looked at each of the 5 Apex in turn, studying them the way a person might study a map before a long journey. Human, Goran rumbled. Do you understand what you face? We are not prey. We are not lost hikers waiting to be saved. We are death itself. I understand, Daniel said quietly. Then why are you here? You have no enhancements, no clothes, no venom, no armor. What could possibly make you think you could defeat us? Daniel considered the question carefully. When he spoke, his voice was calm and unhurried. On Earth, we have animals called wolves. They're strong, fast, excellent hunters. For thousands of years, they were one of the most dangerous predators on our planet. He paused. Humans hunted them nearly to extinction. Not because we were stronger or faster. We weren't. We hunted them because we understood them. We learned how they thought, where they went, what they feared. And when we finally understood them completely, they never saw us coming. The hall grew quiet. I'm not here because I'm dangerous, Daniel continued. I'm here because understanding things is what I do. It's what my species does. We watch. We learn. We adapt. And when we're ready, we act. Drask stepped forward, his confidence returning. Pretty words. Let's see if they survive the hunt. The consortium official activated the selection protocol. As the challenge parties, the 5 Apex would choose their hunting grounds. Drask selected first. Pyros 7, he announced. The lava fields. We will hunt a thermal serpent together. Whoever claims its heartstone first wins. A murmur ran through the crowd. Pyros 7 was a volcanic hellscape where temperatures reached 800 degrees. The Vorm had evolved there. They thrived in conditions that would kill most species in minutes. For a human, it was a death sentence, Daniel nodded. When do we start? Tomorrow. Sunrise on the hunting moon. Drask leaned close, his breath hot and sulfurous. Enjoy your last night alive, little human. Tomorrow you burn. The Vorm turned and left. One by one, the other apex hunters followed, already dismissing the human as a minor obstacle to be removed. Only Whisper paused at the door, its form flickering between shapes as it studied Daniel. You're not afraid? Whisper observed. No. Why not? Daniel looked at the shapeshifter with something that might have been amusement. Because being afraid doesn't help. Being prepared does. Whisper considered this. Then it too departed, leaving Daniel alone in the great hall with the weight of 1 billion watching eyes. That night, Daniel did not sleep. He requested everything the consortium had on Piro's 7. Geological surveys, atmospheric data, behavioral studies of the thermal serpent, historical records of Vorm hunting techniques. He read until his eyes burned, memorizing details that seemed useless, filing away facts that had no obvious purpose that a consortium attendant found him still reading at midnight. Human, it said, not unkindly. You should rest. The hunt will be difficult. Daniel looked up from his datapad. Tell me something. In all your records, has a Vorm ever failed to catch a thermal serpent? Never. They are perfectly evolved for this hunt. Perfectly evolved, Daniel repeated softly. That's what I thought. He returned to his reading, and the attendant left him alone with his impossible task. Tomorrow, he would face a monster in hell itself. And somehow, impossibly, Daniel Reeves was smiling. The ground beneath Daniel's boots glowed orange. Piro's 7 was everything the reports promised and worse. Rivers of molten rock cut through fields of black stone. The air shimmered with heat that would cook an unprotected human in seconds. Geysers of superheated gas erupted without warning, turning solid ground into death traps. Daniel wore a cooling suit designed for extreme environments. It was the best human technology could offer. On this world, it would keep him alive for maybe 6 hours before the batteries failed. Drask wore nothing but his own scales. He stood at the starting point with his arms crossed, looking at Daniel the way a grown adult looks at a child playing pretend. The rules are simple. The consortium drone announced from its heat-shielded housing. A thermal serpent has been tracked to this region. The first hunter to claim its heartstone wins. Killing the other hunter is forbidden. Interfering with the other hunter is permitted. Drask smiled, showing rows of black teeth. Try to keep up, human. The signal sounded. Drask dropped to all fours and pressed his snout to the ground. His species could detect heartbeats through stone, could taste the chemical trails left by prey hours ago. Within seconds, he had a direction. He shot off across the lava fields like a missile, utterly certain of victory. Daniel did not follow. Instead, he walked slowly to a nearby ridge and sat down. He pulled out a small device and began taking readings. Temperature variations, wind patterns, the rhythm of the geysers. An hour passed. The drone hovered nearby, confused. Human, the hunt has begun. Your opponent is already miles ahead. I know, Daniel said, not looking up from his readings. You are making no attempt to pursue the serpent. Not yet. Do you understand that you are losing? Daniel finally looked at the drone. Do you know why the Vorm have never failed to catch a thermal serpent? The drone processed the question. They are perfectly adapted to this environment. That's part of it. But there's something else. Daniel pointed to the distant figure of Drask, barely visible now against the orange glow. The Vorm are predators. They see prey, they chase. It's instinct. It's worked for them for thousands of generations. And this is a problem. Not for them. Not usually. Daniel stood and dusted off his suit. But the thermal serpent evolved here too. It knows what Vorm do. It knows they chase. He began walking, but not in the direction Drask had gone. He moved perpendicular, following lines on his device that only he could read. The serpent isn't running away, Daniel explained as he walked. It's leading, taking its pursuer through the most dangerous terrain, past unstable ground, through geyser fields, across lava flows that look solid but aren't. The drone followed him. How do you know this? Because that's what I would do. If I was smaller and weaker than my enemy, I wouldn't try to outrun them. I'd use their confidence against them. 3 hours into the hunt, Daniel found what he was looking for. A narrow canyon where the heat was slightly lower than everywhere else. A natural corridor that the serpent would have to pass through eventually if it was running its usual pattern. He didn't set a trap. He simply waited. Another hour passed. Then tooted a distant rumble echoed across the lava fields. Then another. Then a crack like thunder as something massive collapsed. The drone's communications crackled. Emergency signals from Drask's location. The Vorm had fallen into a trap. A section of ground that looked solid but was hollow underneath. Weakened by the serpent's careful movements over hours, Daniel started walking toward the sound. He found Drask half buried in cooling rock, his legs trapped, his pride shattered. The Vorm snarled as Daniel approached. "Don't touch me, human. I don't need your help." Daniel ignored him. He found a long piece of volcanic glass and used it as a lever, shifting rocks until Drask could pull himself free. The Vorm's legs were burned badly. He couldn't walk properly. "Why?" Drask demanded. "Why help me? You could have one by default." "I'm not here to watch you die," Daniel said simply. "I'm here to hunt." He pointed to the canyon he'd found earlier. "The serpent will pass through there within the hour. It's been running the same pattern all day, and that's the only place it can go next." "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I've spent 6 hours learning how it thinks instead of chasing it. It's smart. It's patient, but it's also predictable once you understand it." Daniel left Drask with emergency supplies and continued to the canyon alone. The serpent arrived 40 minutes later, just as he predicted. It was beautiful in a terrible way, 15 meters of scaled lightning, glowing from within like living lava. It slithered into the canyon, expecting safety. IT found Daniel waiting with a simple snare made from heat-resistant cable, positioned exactly where the serpent's own territorial instincts would force it to strike point one strike. One trap, one heartstone. Daniel returned to the extraction point carrying his prize. Drask was already there, being treated by medical drones. The Vorm said nothing as Daniel handed the heartstone to the consortium official. But as Daniel walked away, Drask called out, "Human." Daniel turned. "You didn't hunt the serpent," Drask said slowly. "You hunted the hunt itself. You understood everything. The serpent, the terrain, even me, before you ever made a move." Daniel nodded. "What are you?" Drask asked. "Just a tracker," Daniel said. "We follow things. We find things. We understand things." He paused at the shuttle door. "We've been doing it for a very long time." The first hunt was over point 4 remained. Silith of the Khan did not believe in luck. She had watched the footage of Daniel's victory against Drask 17 times. Each viewing convinced her more firmly that the human had simply gotten fortunate. The Vorm was overconfident. The terrain was unusual. None of it would happen again. "You won because Drask is a fool," Silith told Daniel as they stood at the entrance to the glass forest of On 4. "I'm not a fool. I'm fast. Faster than anything you have ever seen. Your patience means nothing when I can cross a kilometer before you take 3 steps." Daniel looked at the forest ahead. Crystalline trees stretched toward a pale sun, their surfaces reflecting light in ways that hurt the eyes. Every branch, every leaf, every blade of grass was made of living glass that grew and shattered and grew again. "What are we hunting?" he asked. "Ashimerkat, nearly invisible, worth a fortune." Silith's 4 arms flexed with anticipation. "I've hunted them since I was young. They're fast, but I'm faster." The hunt began. Silith vanished into the forest like a ghost, her limbs carrying her through the crystal maze at speeds that seemed impossible. Daniel could hear glass breaking in the distance, the sound of her passage echoing through the trees that he did not follow. Instead, he knelt at the forest's edge and picked up a small crystal shard. He tapped it against a tree trunk. The sound traveled far, bouncing off surfaces, creating echoes within echoes. For 2 hours, Daniel walked slowly through the forest, tapping crystals, listening to how sounds moved. The forest wasn't random. It had patterns. Certain frequencies traveled certain directions. Certain tones attracted attention, while others repelled. He began to build a map in his head. Not of the forest paths, but of its sounds. When he finally found fresh Shimmercat tracks, he didn't follow them. Instead, he positioned himself in a small clearing and started creating noise. Top, top, top. Specific rhythms against specific crystals, sending sounds in specific directions. He was building a wall of noise, pushing the cat toward the only quiet place left, his clearing. The Shimmercat arrived confused and exhausted, driven by sounds it couldn't escape. Daniel had a sedation device ready. One shot, clean, painless. When Silith finally arrived, breathing hard despite her speed, she found Daniel sitting calmly with the cat contained beside him. That's impossible, she said. I was tracking it. It was running from me. It was running from both of us, Daniel said. I just made sure it ran toward me instead of away. Scylla stared at him with something new in her compound eyes. Not anger, something closer to fear. Speed doesn't matter, she whispered, if the prey comes to you. Now you understand, Daniel said, point two down. 3 hunts remained. Goran of the Molder chose next. He selected his homeworld, Heavenmore, where gravity crushed bones and only the strongest survived. 3 times your Earth's gravity, Goran explained with a rumbling laugh. Your species can barely walk in normal conditions. Here you will crawl. He was right. Daniel could barely move on Heavenmore. Each step felt like carrying 2 more of himself on his back. His suit's assistance helped, but not enough. He moved like a dying animal while Goran strode across the landscape like a god. Their target was a grave beast, massive, dangerous, and considered the ultimate trophy among Goran's people. Even for a Molder, killing one took days of exhausting combat. Give up, human, Goran called back to Daniel's struggling form. This is not your world. This was never your fight. Daniel didn't answer. He was too busy watching, not the grave beast, not the terrain that he was watching Goran. The Molder hunted the same way his ancestors had for 10,000 years. He followed trails. He tracked spoor. He never looked in places that didn't fit the pattern. Daniel noticed something on his scanner. A deep crevasse nearby, too narrow for a Molder to enter comfortably. Too undignified for a species that valued strength above all. He crawled toward it. Every meter was agony. His muscles screamed. His bones ached. But he kept moving. Inside the crevasse, he found what he expected, a nest. Young grave beasts, barely old enough to survive on their own. A breeding pair's den, hidden in a place no Molder would ever think to look. Daniel documented everything. The location, the number of young, the evidence of a healthy breeding population. When he emerged, Goran was still hunting, still certain of eventual victory. Daniel called for extraction, the tribunal. He presented his evidence. Not a kill, but something rarer. Proof that the grave beast population was sustainable, that hunting them to extinction would be a crime against nature itself. I submit that protection is a higher form of hunting, Daniel told the consortium. Understanding an ecosystem well enough to preserve it requires more skill than simply killing. Goran roared his objection. The council deliberated for hours in the end, they ruled in Daniel's favor. Protecting the breeding pair was worth more than killing a single trophy. The hunt was about understanding, not just destruction. As Daniel left the chamber, Goran blocked his path. You didn't beat me, the Molder growled. You changed the rules. The rules were always bigger than you thought, Daniel replied. Hunting isn't just about killing. It never was. Goran had no answer for that. Point 3 down, point 2 remained. Whisper of Athale had worn 1,000 faces that had been kings and servants, soldiers and children, prey and predator. Its species evolved on a world where nothing was certain and everything could kill you. Deception was survival. Truth was death. For the 4th hunt, Whisper chose its homeworld, the hollow gardens of Thale Prime, where reality itself seemed uncertain. We hunt each other, Whisper explained, its form shifting slowly between humanoid and something less defined. No external prey, no environmental tricks, just you and me in a garden of lies. Only one of us walks out as the victor. Daniel studied the gardens through the viewing screen. Forests that weren't forests, paths that led nowhere, creatures that could be plants or plants that could be creatures. Everything changed. Everything lied. You've studied me, Whisper continued. I know you have. You study everything. But I've studied you too. I watched your previous hunts. I know how you think. I know you're patient. I know you observe before acting. I know you find patterns and exploit them. The shapeshifter leaned close, its face becoming a mirror of Daniel's own. In my garden, your patterns will destroy you. Because I know them now, and I can become anything you expect. The hunt began at sunrise. Daniel entered the gardens and immediately started running. Not walking, not observing, running, crashing through the false vegetation, making noise, showing fear. He moved erratically, doubling back, changing direction, acting like a panicked animal. Whisper followed at a distance, confused. This wasn't the Daniel from the recordings. This wasn't the patient hunter who had defeated 3 apex predators through careful observation and understanding. This was prey. He's broken, Whisper murmured to itself. The pressure finally broke him. The shapeshifter followed the obvious trail Daniel left behind. Broken branches, footprints, scattered equipment, all the signs of a human in full panic. The trail led to a dead-end grove. High walls of thorns on 3 sides. Only one way out. Whisper shifted into its hunting form, something with too many limbs and too many teeth, and moved in for the kill. The human had cornered himself. This would be easy, but when Whisper entered the grove, it found Daniel sitting calmly on a rock, waiting. "Hello," Daniel said. Whisper froze. "You were panicking. I saw the signs. I followed the trail. You saw what I wanted you to see. You followed what I wanted you to follow." The shapeshifter's form rippled with uncertainty. "But I studied you. I know how you hunt. Patient. Careful. You don't run. You don't panic. You studied what I showed the cameras," Daniel said. "You learned the version of me that wanted to be learned. But humans aren't just one thing. We can be patient, yes. We can be careful. But we can also be chaotic, unpredictable, even to ourselves." He stood slowly. "I spent 3 days in the Alaskan wilderness once. Broken leg. A grizzly bear following my blood trail. I couldn't outrun it. I couldn't outfight it. But I could make it think I was going one way while actually going another. Panic can be a performance. Whisper. Fear can be a weapon." The shapeshifter tried to move, but something was wrong. Its limbs felt heavy. The air felt thick. "While you were following my obvious trail," Daniel continued, "I was mapping your garden's security systems. I found the emergency protocols, the sedation fields hidden in certain areas. This grove has one." Whisper felt its consciousness fading. "You can become anything," Daniel said, walking toward the grove's exit. "But you can only think like yourself. Your species has never had to survive being prey. You don't know how prey thinks, how we lie, how we make our hunters see exactly what they expect to see. What are you?" Whisper managed to ask before the sedation took hold. Daniel paused at the exit. The dead end wasn't actually a dead end at all. It was an emergency exit that the Thale never told visitors about because no visitor had ever thought to look for it. "I'm human," Daniel said. "We've been prey for most of our existence. Everything that hunted us is either extinct or afraid of us now. Not because we're the strongest or the fastest. Because we learned to be unpredictable. We learned to show one thing while being another." He stepped through the hidden exit. "You should have studied our history, not just my hunts. We've been fighting shapeshifters since before we had words for them. We call them demons, tricksters, spirits. We beat them all." The exit sealed behind him. Whisper of the Thale, master of deception, had been deceived by the oldest trick in human history, showing your enemy exactly what they expected to see. Point 4 down, point 1 remained. And Cold Steel of the Ricks, who had watched every hunt with mechanical precision, who had analyzed every pattern and every deviation, who was more machine than flesh and made no mistakes. Cold Steel was already planning. Because unlike the others, Cold Steel did not underestimate the human. Cold Steel feared him. And that fear, Daniel knew, would make the final hunt the most dangerous of all. Cold Steel of the Ricks did not sleep, did not eat, and did not make mistakes. The final hunt would take place in the Proving Grounds, a massive artificial arena built by the Ricks specifically to eliminate every advantage except pure skill. No environmental factors to exploit. No terrain to study. No weather to predict. Just 2 hunters and a target. A sentinel, a war construct designed by the Ricks to be unkillable by any organic species. "You cannot outthink me," Cold Steel told Daniel as they stood at the arena entrance. "My processors calculate millions of scenarios per second. You cannot outlast me. I do not tire. You cannot outrun me. My legs are built for speeds your nervous system cannot match." Weapons emerged from panels in Cold Steel's arms. Blades, projectile launchers, energy weapons. "I have analyzed your previous hunts. You exploit patterns. You find weaknesses. You understand your opponents better than they understand themselves. The Rix's mechanical eyes glowed red. I have no weaknesses. I make no patterns. I am perfect. Daniel said nothing. He simply walked into the arena. The proving ground stretched for kilometers, flat, featureless, monitored by thousands of sensors. Nowhere to hide, nothing to use, just open space and certain death. The Sentinel was released. It was massive, 4 meters tall, armed with weapons that could destroy vehicles, armored against anything short of military-grade ordnance. It moved with terrible purpose, scanning for targets. It found Cold Steel first. The Rix was a beacon of electromagnetic activity, cybernetics and weapons and sensors, all broadcasting signals the Sentinel could track from a kilometer away. The War Construct attacked immediately. Daniel watched from a distance as the two machines fought. Cold Steel was skilled, disciplined, precise. But the Sentinel was built to fight beings like Cold Steel. Every attack was countered. Every advantage was neutralized. An hour passed. Cold Steel took damage. Small errors began appearing in its movements. Microsecond delays as its processors worked harder to compensate for failing systems. And Daniel did nothing that he found a corner of the arena and sat down. He watched. He waited. Human. Cold Steel transmitted during a brief pause in combat. You are not fighting. You're not hunting. What is your strategy? I'm learning, Daniel replied calmly. Learning what? There is nothing to learn. The Sentinel has no weaknesses. Everything has weaknesses. Even you. Cold Steel had no response to that. The battle continued. Another hour passed. Cold Steel was winning, slowly, painfully, but the damage was adding up. Processing speeds dropped. Reaction times lengthened. Finally, the Rix cornered the Sentinel against the arena wall. Victory was moments away. Daniel moved that he had spent 2 hours watching. Not the Sentinel, but Cold Steel. He had learned the Rix's combat patterns. The way it transitioned between weapon systems. The split-second delays when switching from offense to defense. Most importantly, he had learned where the maintenance ports were located. Cold Steel species had been enhancing themselves with machines for thousands of years. They were so confident in their technology that they never considered it a vulnerability. Why would they? No organic enemy had ever gotten close enough to exploit it. But Daniel had spent 30 years pulling apart machines. Generators in the wilderness. Crashed helicopters. Broken radios. When people got lost because equipment failed, his job was to understand why. He knew machines the way other people knew faces. In the moment when Cold Steel committed fully to its killing strike against the Sentinel, Daniel was already there. His hand found the maintenance port on Cold Steel's chassis, a tiny panel that no enemy had targeted in a millennium because no organic should even know it existed. Point 1 button. One signal. Emergency shutdown. Cold Steel froze mid-strike. System suspended, consciousness trapped inside a body that wouldn't respond. How? The Rix managed to transmit before full shutdown. You said you had no weaknesses, Daniel replied. But you're a machine, and all machines were built by someone, which means all machines have maintenance protocols, emergency shutdowns, safety features. He stepped back from Cold Steel's motionless form. You trusted your technology so completely that you forgot technology can fail, can be accessed, can be used against you. The Sentinel was still active, still dangerous, still theoretically unkillable. Daniel had been watching it for 2 hours as well. He approached slowly. The War Construct tracked him but didn't immediately attack. His biological signature was so minimal compared to Cold Steel's that its targeting systems considered him a low priority. Daniel counted the Sentinel's movement patterns. 1, 2, 3. A 2-second reset window between attack cycles. Just long enough that he reached the Sentinel during that window and found the emergency shutdown panel on its chest. Every Rix creation had one. Safety protocols buried in the design specifications, never meant to be used in combat, because no one should be able to get close enough that in '01 except a human who had spent his whole life getting close to dangerous things. He entered the shutdown code with 0.3 of a second to spare. The Sentinel powered down. The arena fell silent. Daniel stood alone in the empty space. surrounded by two inactive machines, breathing hard but alive, that he had won. The final hunt was over, and across the galaxy, billions of beings who had dismissed humanity as soft and weak and insignificant watched in stunned silence as a single human walked out of an arena that should have been his grave. The Grand Council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from 1,000 worlds packed the galleries, their attention fixed on the platform where Daniel Reeves stood alone. Behind him, displayed on massive screens, were images from his 5 victories. The 5 Apex stood in a row before the council. They had arrived together for the first time since the challenge began. Not as judges, not as opponents. As witnesses, Drask spoke first. I hunted a thermal serpent on my own world, in conditions that should have killed any outsider. The human did not try to match my strength. He understood the terrain better than I did, and used my confidence against me. Silas stepped forward. I'm the fastest hunter my species has ever produced. The human made my speed worthless. He didn't chase the prey. He made the prey come to him. Goran's voice rumbled through the chamber. I brought him to a world with 3 times his gravity, where he could barely walk. He found something I would never have looked for. He proved that understanding is worth more than killing. Whisper's form shifted as it spoke. I have worn 1,000 faces. I have deceived beings across the galaxy. The human deceived me using the oldest trick of all, showing me exactly what I expected to see. Finally, Cold Steel, its systems repaired but its pride still damaged, delivered its testimony. I'm a perfect machine. No weaknesses. No patterns. The human found the weakness I forgot I had, the belief that I had none. The council elder raised its many hands for silence. Daniel Reeves of Earth. You have accomplished what no hunter in recorded history has achieved. You have defeated all 5 Apex. By the laws of the consortium, your species has earned a permanent seat on the High Council. The chamber erupted in sound, some cheering, some protesting, many simply stunned into noise. The elder continued. We offer you the position of Earth's representative. You would be the first human to hold such power. What say you? Daniel looked at the council. At the 5 Apex, at the billions watching across the galaxy. No, he said. The chamber fell silent. I'm not a politician, Daniel said. I'm not a soldier. I'm not even really a hunter, not in the way you mean it. He stepped forward. On Earth, we have a word, tracker. It means someone who follows trails. But it's more than that. It means someone who finds what's lost, someone who brings things home, someone who makes things whole. He looked at the 5 Apex. You want to know what I really do? What my job actually was before I came here. I didn't hunt animals. I found lost children in the wilderness. I found hikers who wandered off trails and would have died without help. I found people trapped after accidents before they froze to death. I found the body of a grandfather so his family could have peace. The chamber was absolutely still. Every technique I used against your champions came from that work. Patience, because sometimes a lost child has been missing for days and you can't give up. Understanding terrain, because nature doesn't care about your schedule. Reading people, because sometimes the person you're looking for is too scared to call out and you have to figure out where they would hide. He turned to face the elder directly. Your galaxy celebrates hunters. You respect predators. The species with the sharpest claws and the biggest teeth earns seats on your council. But on Earth, we learned something different. We learned that the greatest skill isn't taking life. It's preserving it, understanding it, finding it when it's lost. The elder considered this for a long moment. What would you have us do then? Create something new. Not a hunting division, you have enough of those. A Pathfinder division, dedicated to finding the lost, rescuing the stranded, recovering what the galaxy thought was gone forever. He looked at the 5 Apex again. These are the greatest hunters you've ever produced. Imagine what they could do if they used those skills to save lives instead of ending them, to find instead of kill, to bring home instead of take. The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations. The elder called for a vote. It was not unanimous. Many species found the idea confusing, even offensive. But enough voted yes. The Pathfinder division was approved. 6 months later, Daniel stood on a dusty world at the edge of known space, training its first class. Beings from 100 different species had volunteered, creatures who had spent their lives hunting learning to search instead. Drask was there, his tracking senses now used to find survivors in collapsed structures. Silith's speed helped reach disaster sites before it was too late. Goran's strength cleared rubble to reach those trapped beneath. Whisper's shape-shifting let it calm frightened victims by becoming something familiar. Even Cold Steel had joined, its sensors perfect for locating life signs in impossible conditions. They called themselves the Found out on the day of their first real mission, a colony transport lost in an asteroid field. A young alien recruit asked Daniel why he had given up power and glory to do this instead. Daniel looked at the stars and thought about all the children he had found over the years. All the families reunited. All the lives saved simply because someone refused to stop looking. Because everyone gets lost sometimes, he said, and everyone deserves someone looking for them. His communicator buzzed. A signal, faint, coming from somewhere in the debris field. Signs of life. Daniel smiled and started walking. There was work to do.